This is a look at the best newaza techniques from the 2021 All Japan Junior Judo Championships. Here's a lovely Ude-garami. She moves around to the head. She's careful to block the head so her opponent can't roll through, and finishes for the submission. Next we have Yoshida from International Pacific University. She scores waza ari with the sodei tsurikomi goshi, and now she's going to move in for an okuri-eri-jime. Throws the leg over the shoulder as the opponent stands and gets the submission. Here's another okuri-eri-jime. This is from Hikari Yoshioka. So you might remember seeing Hikari Yoshioka in a video I put out about a month or so ago called Sliding Lapel Strangle. In that one, Hikari Yoshioka choked a girl unconscious in a high school judo match. And this time she won by submission. So Yoshioka was the winner of the under 48 kilo class. She beat Yoshida in the final, who you saw earlier. Here's an okuri-eri-jime attempt that fails due to the stretched leg rule. If the opponent's leg is being stretched, the referee will stop it as there's a risk of a hamstring extension injury. In this case, the guy came right back and countered an over-under pass with ashi-jime, often known as Kanto choke, after Flavio Kanto. Here is the final okuri-eri-jime. So another one. This was the finals of the men's 73 kilo, I believe. Now part 2, we're going to look at submission attacks that led to pins. This is Ikeda once more, who began the video. Here she goes for an omoplata, sometimes called ashi-sankaku-garami. Now you can't use omoplata as a submission, so she removes the arm from the omoplata and controls her opponent's wrist and establishes osaekomi, and the opponent submitted. So there's one more clip from Ikeda coming up later in this video. She really did show some impressive newaza. Now here's an interesting scramble. The guy on top loses position, gets trapped with an Ude-garami. He's able to escape the Ude-garami itself. However, he's caught on the bottom and is pinned. So the men's event on day 1 did have more newaza than you'd usually expect from a men's judo tournament. Didn't see much in the way of newaza action on day 2. I believe this is Honda. Honda using Yoko-sankaku-gatame to get the pin. So a very nice tight sankaku. Here she's going to adjust the leg, get it nice and tight. Likely would have been pretty close to a strangle here. You can see how her opponent's arm is just hanging. There's just no room for her to move that arm around. And she gets a nice tight control and finishes with osaekomi. There are a few more clips from Honda coming up later in this video. So Honda is a high school student. Some of the students, or some of the girls in this, are university students. This is a juniors event, so it's under 20s. Now this girl is not a high school student or a university student. She represents a business in Japan, Mitsui Sumitomo. It's a bank and insurance company. They have a pretty strong judo team. The head coach there is Masai Ueno. And here Kuwagata gets the Ude-garami to force the turnover. And is able to control it for the pin. Here's another Ude-garami turnover. This time the girl on top, she has her body on the right side of her opponent's body, and she's just using her hips to follow her opponent's head and neck as she attempts to move away. And her opponent is just unable to find the space to free that arm and escape osaekomi. There's a nice Kosodogari. This is from Hikari Yoshioka, who we saw earlier. Now she's working for another Okuri-eri-jime. She gets the turnover. Don't think the ref's called osaekomi just yet. Surely he must have called it by now. She isolates the arm. And now the ref's finally calling for osaekomi. So there's still one more clip from Hikari Yoshioka to come in this video. Yoshioka is the world cadet champion. Now this lady, Hatae, I think it is. If you know the reading of the kanji for this lady, please leave a comment. So she gets the arm control, pins the arm to the floor, is able to force her opponent to turn in order to protect the elbow, and secures the pin. Obviously this is a super heavyweight. Here's Honda again. So this time she turns the opponent, and a little bit unclear of how she was able to put this opponent into some pain. There is a submission here after she establishes osaekomi. It's really unclear as to why she does clutch at her hip and shoulder after she submits. So osaekomi is established, and she tries to escape a little, and then she gives up. And she's holding onto the hip and shoulder. Now this is Momo, it's either Momo Katsube or Momo Katabe, depending on how you read the kanji in her name. So she gets a nice turn over here. She looks for the Okuri-eri-jime. She can't find it. And then in the very next exchange after mate was called, she gets a nice pin. This time she goes with Okuri-eri-jime against a standing opponent to cradle her. As she gets her down to her hip, she pushes her down, now looking to pass half guard. She's able to get that foot out against a stiff-legged defense. And into Kesagatame for this win. I think there's one more clip from Momo at the end of this video. Now here's Ikeda again. We saw her at the beginning of part 1 and part 2. Now we're going to see a really cool turnover that she used to get a win here. So she wants the Ude-garami, but the opponent's extending the arm, so she just drops the knee over the elbow to bend the elbow, gets control of the wrist, finishes the turn, and then it's a simple Yoko-gatame finish by Kurena Ikeda. She's a first-year university student at Tokai Daigaku. Tokai Dai is one of the strongest universities in Japanese judo. Have a really impressive coaching staff. People like Aaron Wolf, Kosei Inoue are part of the coaching setup there. Here's an incredible Sumigaishi counter. See how he blocks his opponent's leg by the hip, traps the head, and cartwheels over, and finishes off with Kami Shiho Gatame. I'll have to remember to practice that one. I think Kaori Matsumoto used to do something like that against guard players when she was standing. Here's Yoshioka again. This time she's going to use a guard sweep. Grabs hold of the belt, gets the hook in, throws her opponent onto her back, has the underhook, so it's an easy job for her to get that leg free. And winning with Yoko Shiho Gatame. Yoshioka is definitely one to watch for the future of Japan's 48 kilo category. Funatanaki, Natsumi Tsunoda, and Wakana Koga all having big international successes this year. So far they've been able to keep Yoshioka out of their team. Now here's a nice combination. We have a failed Ippon Seonage, but Erika Okada keeps hold of the sleeve and traps both arms. She has one arm trapped under her arm, an armpit trap, and the other one is holding the sleeve. She had that sleeve control right from the beginning when she dropped into that Seo Otoshi and then finished off with Ure-gatame. Here's a big Uranage followed by a nice Ure-gatame escape. So Yuna Yoshida throws her opponent with a big Uranage. Then we see a bit of a surprise. This Ude-garami battle ends with the other girl, I believe it's Manami, holding her in Ure-gatame, and Yoshida is able to escape her elbow, and mate is called. And straight after this, Yoshida came right back up and went for the Uranage again, ended up switching to Kosodo-gari, and see a nice guard sweep. She gets her arm wrapped under the belt for a tight control. And look how tight this pin is. The opponent's arm, left arm is fully extended. She's got both, Yoshida's got both of her arms under the body. There's really no way that Minami can move her hips away and get free of this pin. So very impressive pinning there by Yoshida, and some pretty impressive power throwing as well. The next clip is going to be a counter to the guard sweep we just saw, to this belt hooking sweep. So this is from the under 52 kilo final. Now you see the girl wrapping her arm inside the belt looking for the sweep, but she gets countered. Shiraishi blocking the near hip and reaching over the head, and eventually she'll get free of guard, and then she's caught in half guard once more. Now she uses an underhook to do a standard knee slice pass against the half guard. So this was the under 52 kilo final. I believe this was the very first sequence of the match. Right away it went to newaza and shiraishi coming on top for the win. Here's Rizu Matsumoto, and the name should have been a giveaway for the turnover. So Kaori Matsumoto style headlock, also known as kata sankaku. So the referee was just about to call mate, looked like there was nothing going on, and then bang, big Matsumoto headlock turnover. So Rizu Matsumoto actually went to the same high school as Kaori Matsumoto. Here's Nakazuru. Gonna see a couple of sankaku turnovers. Then she's eventually gonna transition into the hold down. Here we go again for sankaku turnover number 2. She's got good control of the near elbow. She's caught in half guard. So she's pummeled in an underhook. Now she's trying to get the knee free. She gets it free and moves to Kuzure Kesagatame for the match-winning hold down. Next we have, it's either Akina Hata or Akina Hatada, depending on the reading of the kanji. So this is an SRT. This move was super popular amongst younger players over the last few years, but there were not many matches where this was used successfully. Hatada trains at Mitsui Sumitomo with one of the masters of the SRT, Haruka Funakubo, and she was able to have some success with this turnover. So here's Akina one more time. This time she's going to go for the same SRT turnover, Super Rolling Thunder, but her opponent's going to manage to trap her in half guard. She initially had the hold down, the opponent recovered to half guard and made an attempt to finish the pass, but I think the opponent turtled out as she got the leg out. And then in the next clip, we'll see how Akina was able to win this match with a nice turnover. So here is Akina one more time. So there's a failed Uchimata attempt, and she does an interesting tactic of binding her opponent's knees together, elevating the legs, and then turning her over the shoulder, and establishes Kamishiho-gatame for the win. So Akina is a competitor in the under 63 kilo division. Will be interesting to see if she makes it onto the national team in the future. Now here is Arai. She had a few interesting newaza wins. This one's a reversal from kame bottom to the top into the hold down Ude-gatame. The next clip we're going to see is from Arai again, and it's going to be a katagatame finish. There were a couple of katagatame finishes, but I decided to include this one because of the interesting leg positioning on the katagatame. So she's behind her opponent, rolls her under into the katagatame, pummels the leg out rather than going to to a standard kata-gatame type finish. He stays in tate shiho-gatame, switching between standard tate shiho-gatame and this shin across the belly type control. So the shin across the belly really makes it difficult for the opponent to free their hips. So a very nice hold down there by Mao Arai. So we see her move back to standard tate shiho-gatame. And a fairly exhausted opponent on the bottom. Now we're going to have a look at a couple of throws to pins. This one was Kataguruma to an unusual pin form. I didn't include too many videos in this section as I wanted this video to mostly focus on interesting newaza transitions. So this one was from day one. It's an uranage. She pulls her opponent's collar towards her while pulling the hips in tight to twist the body. Throws with a big uranage, then just has to pummel the leg free in order to win by osaekomi. So finishing off with kesa-gatame. The opponent making a strong effort to escape, but never really looks like this one is really up for grabs. So the last section of the video, we'll just have a look at a few little extra clips. Here's an ouch moment. Painful tomo anage. Remember this guy's face. Someone asks you if you want to do uchikomi. And here's an ashi-sankaku attempt from Momo Katabe or Katsube, we saw earlier, trying to bundle up the opponent's legs, but her opponent was able to remain in turtle. Here's another turnover attempt from Honda. We saw a couple of pins from Honda earlier. This is from the match which she won by submission. She would have seen in part 2 of this video. She gets very close to establishing, or she does establish osaekomi, but the referee ultimately waves off the pin. Close, but not close enough. And the last video, these two ladies had a few interesting scrambles. This one's the final clip for this video. So let me know in the comments which techniques you liked best, and subscribe for more non-stop newaza. So we see an SRT attempt. Passes guard, establishes osaekomi, but her opponent manages to belly down